We're going to start, and hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of I Am Exchange. And today we are excited to have the opportunity to talk with Christina Bothwell, and we're calling this exchange Engaging the Ethereal. So let's run the video.
Glass allows us to see in and out and invites us to imagine. Imagine Museum, Contemporary Glass Art.
Birth and death, who are we and why are we here? Those are the questions that have always plagued me. I'm always interested in new ways to portray that. I am a storyteller and I love stories. If something really touches me, I have to process it and get it out by doing a piece.
And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Christina Bothwell. Hello, and we have Robert Bender with us also today.
Hello.
So, hello, so happy to be sharing with you here in Florida. So even though it's virtual, it is a real pleasure to see you. So how's the summer going for you?
Oh, it's going great. And thank you so much for inviting me to speak. And thank you, Trish, for having this incredible museum and creating this, and Natalia and Kurt, and that title, Kurt, Engaging the Ethereal. I love it. So thank you for all of this. It's just wonderful.
And I just wanted to say hello, and I'm the unofficial technical assistant, which I had to do absolutely nothing, but I'm here just to make sure that Christina feels like she's off to a good start. So, and I just want to say hello. I'm not going to stay because I don't want her to, be self-conscious. Like,
hey, well, thank you, Robert, and you yourself. Beyond the assistant, we understand, we know you as an artist as well, so thank you. Thanks for the assistance. Thanks for the assistance. Now, because we have so many questions and you have provided us with some wonderful images, I just want to dive right in. And as we begin, I think you should just talk a little bit about your earlier years and how you came to the glass material.
Well, I went to the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts for painting, and I was a representational painter. And when I moved out from New York City to the country, I found a ceramic kiln for $10 at an auction. And I just started playing with clay. And I make the analogy of saying that I felt like I was in a long, boring marriage with painting, and I was having this torrid affair with clay. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I just loved it. And I felt that using ceramics really made me come alive. But after about 5 years of showing, exhibiting the work, and I couldn't figure out how to use glazes in a way that didn't make my work seem like a joke where I was explaining the punchline to everybody. I just couldn't find any subtlety. And so I kind of got burned out and lost interest in doing ceramics. And a friend of mine said, well, you live very close to Corning, about 2 hours away. They have all kinds of glass classes. And I thought, I'd never really thought about glass or taken much interest in it. But I thought, I took a paper making class and an Indian food cooking class. And I thought, yeah, I'll try glass casting. And I went to Corning and I just lost my mind. And it was like falling madly in love, where you're just swept away and there's no logic or anything. I just had to hang on and go for the ride.
So let's start the PowerPoint slides. And as we get them onto the screen, Christina, let's just have you talk a little bit about the slides as you see them in front of you, and you can be the one to direct. When you want them to change, you can just ask them to move forward, and that will be fine.
Okay. That sounds
okay,
good.
So slide 1.
This is one of my first pieces, and I've always been very intrigued with the notion, with the idea, which I firmly believe, that we're much more than our physical bodies, and that we're not confined to just our bodies, and that our lives and relationships don't end once the physical body dies. And so I made this piece. It's one of my first pieces to kind of suggest this. And I did this after a friend of mine had passed away, and I was thinking about him a lot. And it's not very well made because I'm basically self-taught, other than just a workshop at Corning and a short class at Pilchuck. But I think the idea is there, and it might be a good idea to revisit, do that piece again, sometime.
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece. Yes.
And the next piece, or the previous piece to that, I think this is, that one. This is called While You're Sleeping, and this is in the permanent collection at the Corning Glass Museum. I think this is a really good example of how clay and glass work together, and how clay can suggest, the physical, heavy, earthy elements, and glass can suggest the ethereal. And when I was first pregnant with my daughter, Sophie, this started happening to me. And I think it was because I was so sleep deprived that I started falling asleep without losing my consciousness. And I became aware of sitting up out of my body and traveling. And this is actually a pretty common phenomenon, because when I posted this on Instagram, I had a number of people say, oh yeah, when I was pregnant and I first had children, this happened to me all the time. But it was such an affirming feeling about life, and how we aren't just confined to our bodies. These experiences felt more real to me than dreams. And I decided that I wanted to try to express them somehow in my sculpture. So that was one of the first. And then I did a number of pieces along that same topic.
Is that a wall piece then? Is that hung on the wall? Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, very nice.
And that was cast aluminum. And yeah. This is called I Dreamt I Saw an Angel. Because I think those things happen when we're dreaming. We might not remember, but.
Let's keep going through. I think the animal series is also very intriguing.
Right. I made this piece because hunting is very big around where I live, not so much with me, but I really love deer. I think I identify with them because they don't really have anybody else rooting for them. So it's me and the deer, but I love them. So you can keep going. This is called Dreaming in Color. And it's, again, that same idea that we travel when we sleep, and combining the glass with the, I kind of chose a lot of pieces that dealt with the same subject matter, which is one of my favorite. Next. So I've told this story to in other talks that I have, but this was a commission that I did, and it was so fun. It was so fun. Usually when I have a commission, I'm told very specifically what color glass, what size, what scale. But this woman, I have twins, and I've always been obsessed with twins. And in fact, when I found out that I was pregnant with twins, my husband said that was too much creative visualization, because I was a little bit scared. I wasn't sure that I was going to be up for the task. But a woman came up to me during a glass event, and she said, I know that you're obsessed with twins, and I just want to introduce myself. I'm an identical twin, and this is my husband. He's an identical twin. And his identical twin married my identical twin. And she said, and then she went on to say that she and her sister had always been very close, and her sister had died, and she wanted me to do a piece about her and her sister. So she gave me a number of photographs of her and her sister in little dresses. And I thought, okay, I could do something like two little girls in identical dresses. But then later she came up to me and she told me this really beautiful story. And I made the piece based on that story. Do you want me to tell the story?
Please do.
Okay.
Yes.
She said that she and her husband decided to get a vacation home because no time like the present. You know, she was very, very depressed, and they both had this awareness that life can end at any time. So they bought this home and they moved everything into it, and the electricity was not hooked up yet. So there were no lights or anything. And her husband went back to New York to work, and she stayed in the house, and she was lying on the bed, and she was very, very depressed about this loss of her beautiful sister. And as she was laying there, she started thinking, wondering how long it would take if she just stopped eating. And she was lying there, and it had become dark. It was in the evening, and she heard footsteps downstairs. And she thought, somebody's broken in. They saw the moving vans. They see that nobody is here. There's no car. They're coming to rob it. And she thought, good, I hope they kill me. because then it'll be over. And she heard steps come, she heard footsteps coming up the steps, and she heard the doorknob, and she was lying curled up in the bed with her eyes closed, and it was completely dark. And she heard footsteps come across the room. The door opened, and she smelled her sister. And her sister got behind her in bed and put her arms around her, spooning her the way she always had when they were alive, and they would comfort each other. And she opened her eyes, and the whole room was blinding white, like there were Klieg lights on. And her sister was really physical. She really felt her, and gradually that presence faded. But after that, she felt that she could go on. And so I decided to do the piece based on that. And fortunately, she liked it because I didn't ask her permission.
Very powerful.
It's called Tethered to My Heart.
Yeah, very powerful.
So recently I got invited by High Fructose, the magazine. They're doing a curated show at a gallery in the fall, and it's going to be called Tiny Ghosts. And so they invited me to make a piece. They've probably invited 40 artists. And so I'm invited to make one little piece. And I said, oh, I'm going to make a big, huge piece. And they said, no, because of the insurance of the gallery, just keep the pieces small. But it just totally lit me up. And I told you, Jane, that I feel like I feel like a girl that meets a boy at a party that she likes and goes out and buys the wedding dress. I've gone and made like 6 pieces, but I just am so grateful to them for the inspiration. So this was one of the first things I did based on that idea.
Yeah, I love that idea.
And this was just a piece called Ghost Girl that I made for a show a couple years ago. So kind of goes along with that theme of the ethereal. And I love the idea that glass can allow you to see below the surface to what's inside. And I always like to try to suggest that we have a soul. Everyone has a soul. Animals, I don't think animals are any different. But later when I looked at this piece, I made this piece about 15 years ago. I thought, this was about me trying to manifest a pregnancy. Obviously, I didn't see it at the time, but I was really thinking about having children. So I did a number. I just include this one. This is one of my very, very first pieces. And I just think it's interesting that I made this piece about 5 or 6 years before I had twins, because I got obsessed with showing pregnancy of twins for some reason. And looking back, I think that was really interesting. Like my psyche was trying to prepare me. Hold on, it's coming.
So how old are your twins now?
They're 16, and my older daughter just turned 20. And see, this piece also has twins inside. If you look in the pink glass.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 So you survived the twins, but it's still.
I'm so lucky. I'm just so, I'm waiting for them to hate me because my teenage years were really difficult. And so far they're all very loving, and I'm just very blessed. I don't know.
Yes. See, you were prepared.
The advantage of being an older mother.
Yes. Yes, exactly. This one is interesting in the fish.
Well, I like the idea that we're all the same. I don't think there's any difference between animals and people. We all have that sense of me-ness. We're all like equally me, and so I wanted to show that. And this is called Evolution as a State of Mind. And sometimes I just think it's fun to incorporate like found objects and sometimes taxidermy and other kinds of things to break up the monotony of the glass. It's just somebody wrote to me on Instagram and said, you're kind of like, you do collage with glass. And I thought, oh, I like that a lot. Collage with glass. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. You do.
So this is
perfect example.
This is called Birth. And pretty much speaks for itself.
Yeah. Beautiful. So let me ask you something about the pieces. Are you painting then on the surface, that the color that's on the surface, that's paint, right?
That's what I was trained to do. That's the only thing I went to art school for was painting. And so it's so nice after, I thought, wow, what a waste of 4 years that I went to school for painting and I'm never going to do that again. But it's so, why not paint on glass?
Yes,
paint on
that's
anything.
Right. That's right.
I found this picture on Instagram, and it's the kind of thing that really inspires me. I have no idea who took the picture, but I thought I'd throw in a few of those different. And this is an example of spirit photography. I think you can see the figure of a man. It's William Mumler became famous for doing spirit photography, and no one could prove that he was a hoax. But I just think they're amazing.
Yeah, isn't that President Lincoln?
I don't know.
Mary Todd, yeah, I think it's President Lincoln and Mary Todd, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. And here's just another example of spirit photography by William Mumler. He's an inspiration for me
Mhm.
for this type of, subject matter. So here's one of the pieces that started was, and I can show you at the end, it's getting almost finished, but I started the piece in wax, which I think has a kind of a cool look. I use beeswax and then I sculpt it and then I cast that. But I start with the clay head because clay shrinks 10% and glass shrinks 1%. So I always make the clay portions first and fire them so that I can kind of make sure that the piece at the end matches up. So this is a tiny one of my tiny ghost offerings. The idea that we're always surrounded by the spirit world, even if we don't have any awareness of it. And I'll show you the finished piece at the end.
Love
And
it.
so here's some sketches that I just thought I'll throw in some sketches for these pieces that I'm making.
So is that your process then, Christina, that you have the concept, you sketch it out,
Yes,
then you make the positive, you make the pieces of it, the positive, and then move forward to cast it.
and
So
then
it's,
cast.
yeah, and then not only that, then you also apply of the other elements, the collage type of elements or the paint elements.
Right.
On top of
They
that.
take a long time, but I find that when I get an idea, it's like remembering a dream. And if I don't write it down or draw it, the idea will just go away. So this was called, this will be titled "On Escorting Rosie to the Heavenly Realm," because my dog died, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could just take the ones we loved to the other side and then come back? And I wanted to kind of express what I would imagine that would look like for my dog. So
Yeah.
this is how
Yes.
the piece is in the rough. And then
Love it.
here's another idea of that all our pets, when they die, they're still with us, because sometimes I like going to thrift stores, and there's a Goodwill that's really good near one of the university towns near us. And there's a woman that works there named Carmen, and she's like a natural clairvoyant. And she was telling me about her cat, Jack. She said, he is so big and fat, and when he jumps on the bed between my legs every night, he is so heavy. And I said, well, how much does he weigh? And she said, oh, honey, he died. He died a year ago, but he still sleeps with me every night. So I love that idea of all our past pets sleeping with us.
Yes.
So
yes,
I
yes.
included this piece just because sometimes I like incorporating little bits of taxidermy. It seems sort of weird, since I'm a vegan on a plant-based diet, to use like animal parts, but I kind of feel that it honors the animal that lost their life. And the woman that I buy the pieces of taxidermy from, her name is Serena Brewer, and she only uses roadkill. Although a friend of mine said that's what I would say also to people, but
So what is the roadkill? Are you're just using that?
I just used raccoon ears that she sent me, but in my studio, she just sent me 2 sets of deer feet and some pig feet and some squirrel feet and tails, because I broke my ankle 2 months ago, and I've been really thinking about how ankles are so important, and they're so, we don't pay much attention to them, but they support our whole weight, and we're kind of like deer with our little fragile ankles. And I thought I could do a piece. And so she sent me some deer feet, taxidermy deer feet. So I'm so excited.
The life of an artist and materials.
Well, I had a dealer once tell me that I shouldn't use taxidermy because it's very hard if somebody overseas buys a piece, because customs doesn't like to send animal parts across the border. So for a long time, I kind of dumbed that down and didn't do taxidermy. And I started thinking about like making pieces that were more saleable and all that. And recently, I just want to make pieces that just excite the heck out of me, because when I look back on it, every piece I ever made using taxidermy sold to somebody. So maybe if I'm really lit up about something, there's somebody that it's meant for.
I think so. I love this piece. Talk about this piece.
Yeah, I made this piece because even though my children are grown now, I feel like they're still babies in my mind. I still carry every version of them with me, and I always worry about them, and I think I'm going to until the end of my life. I'm always worrying about carrying the weight of them, but it gives me joy too. So
when I saw this, it is just like the position that every mother knows, right? The child on their back and the mother is doing something on the floor, but the child is there. The hair off to the side. It's such a moment in so many people's lives. And I think the metaphor is great also. Having an older daughter myself, I think we carry them.
Yeah.
You know,
To my credit, I never actually put my babies on my back like that when
Yes.
the babies got.
yeah,
So,
yes.
so this is just a piece. I do pieces like this when it's hunting season, because hunting season, I just want to take all the deer and put them in my house and keep them all there until after hunting season. And of course I can't do that, but this is just sort of like, I wish I could.
Yes, yes.
And I'm having a show right now in France, and a big show with a number of pieces, and this was me being interviewed by the French press. I don't know why I threw that in there. I don't know.
I love it. Is that your broken ankle though? I
Yes.
see. Yes.
That was like, I didn't wear the brace that day, and that was a mistake. But you can see I have no idea what I'm being asked, because they're speaking in French and I don't speak any French, but it was really fun, you know,
Yes.
being over there in France and having so many people talk to me about my work. And we had so many heartfelt conversations where there was no common language. And I realized you don't really need language. You
Yes.
you can convey a feeling and emotion, and language is just such a tiny part of relating to people.
So how did the French then respond to your work and the ethereal aspect of it?
They loved it. I mean, I had a few people that were even in tears, you know, saying that their
Yeah.
pieces had really moved them. It was a show of contemporary ceramic artists. I'm not sure why they asked me, because the ceramic is such a small part, but I was really happy. It was fun. It was really fun.
Yeah, I've seen some of those pieces. They're great.
So sometimes this is a piece that was inspired by Balthus's painting of the girl in the chair. And I just was trying to express the vulnerability, but how we're protected by nature. You know, nature is always there to support us and take care of us. And again, this is another, this was inspired by one of John Tenniel's illustrations in from Alice in Wonderland, which I love.
Yes.
And, you know,
Mhm.
and this is just a piece that
Love
I'm
this
starting. This is how they look when I start. I'm kind of like just sticking things together and seeing how they work. And I made the head first, and, you know, just for fun. So this is barely started, but I thought I'll just throw in an image of that just to show.
Just the process. Yeah.
And I've done some pieces that hang on the wall of kind of dreamlike tea parties, because wouldn't it be fun? Didn't you as a child picture having tea with imaginary friends and wild animals? And
Yes. Yes.
this is super teeny, about the size of a bar of soap, and it's just all glass. I put that in there because it's completely glass with no ornamentation. But
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a small piece. So when did that piece
These
fit
are just-
into little things that you do?
yeah, just sometimes I'll just do little pieces, and I've been playing around with the idea of mosaics and adding some mosaic elements, you know, gluing those onto the glass. And
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes it's really fun to see giant pieces, but I like when I'm at an artist studio and they have lots of tiny things too. I just like looking at the variety. So these are all super tiny. These are in a show at Torrey Full Gallery right now. These little things. They're just they're just.
Are those beads?
They're what? Pardon me?
Are they beads that
Yes,
you
they're
have
like-
on this surface?
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, they're like little
Beautiful.
tiny miniature tiles. This is also based on Alice in Wonderland. Just so. And this was just a big piece that I did of Ring Around the Rosie. It's about, well, it's not that huge, but it's about maybe 3.5 by 3.5 feet, and hangs on the wall. And I just put
What-
that in there because I like it.
I like that piece also. What I like about your work is that you can have large pieces like the bench with the 7 children that we have on at the museum, but you have the scale of the smaller. So I like that you can translate your ideas through scale, through something small to something very large, and still have impact.
Thank you.
The variety of what you've just shown just demonstrates that, I believe, very well.
Ah, thank you. So I have for this tiny ghost, shall I show you like how some of the pieces look at the end? They're all kind of small, but I'll just hold this up.
Sure.
I showed you how it looked rough. They're super heavy despite being small, but it's not finished. But let me back up so you can see it. But this is
Yes.
kind of like the idea of one of the pieces, how it looks when it's cast in glass. And I'll get another one. They're cute when they're small. Sometimes people find
I
my
think
pieces
so.
scary, but I think they're kind of sweet. I like the
Yes.
combination of like, you know, cute and disturbing at the same time, because it's like adds a kind of like a syncopation or interesting energy when you have more than one element in it. So, and then I was showing you that I started this idea. It doesn't look like much. It's just the bottom half of a person, but I thought it'd be really fun to do a whole installation of people walking through walls, you know.
I think that is, I think that's terrific.
I can't do it for this high fructose show because they just want one piece and they're going to be little. But someday I think I want to do a show where I have a wall of people walking through walls. I think that would be really fun.
You know what I also enjoy about your work? So we have seen earlier works and the works of today, but the consistency of your personal visual language and really the pursuit of the ideas and concepts you're trying to communicate, really being consistent over all of these number of years that you've been doing it. You might say that it's more refined or that you understand the material, but the consistency of ideas is truly remarkable, you know, that you have stayed true to that essence.
Well, I guess I have a one-track mind. I mean, when I was really, really small, I could sense when I was around people that they were going to die. That happened, and it just really made my parents angry. And so I was always kind of obsessed with that. Like, do we choose the time that we die, and what does it mean? Because even though I always believed that we were more than our bodies, it was such a shocking idea, you know. But this quote, can I read you this really cool quote that I came across? It's by
Please do.
Mike Anderson. He said, "If you look beyond religion, there's a great deal of evidence bolstered by science that our consciousness or our mind spirit not only survives our body's demise, but the mind without a material body is our natural state of existence." And I just think, you know, that just says it all. And that is something that I really am interested in trying to express with art. And it's really hard to express the ethereal with, you know, physically, you know.
Well, and it's interesting because as I observe people as they approach your work, and sometimes, and you said it just a minute ago, some people are scared, or would that be a right word, or that they don't understand maybe the ceramic heads or that approach, right? Because it creates some kind of fear in it. But you had said something that you like the contrast between what they're seeing and that there is just a little bit of an edge to it. Can you just talk about that more? Because I myself, as I see your work, I respond to it on that level that you're communicating it. But when I see people approach it, and some, it creates a little bit of unease. And I want to tell them something. I usually do, but I want to hear what you would say to them.
I usually say that that I think that ideas are something that my ideas come up from, they're based on a feeling that I have. It's like I'll start being filled with this energy. And a friend of mine who's a painter said it's like falling in love, and you just want to get that feeling out. And it's not intellectual. It's something that comes from the unconscious. And I think for some people, the unconscious makes them very uncomfortable because it makes them think of death, you know. And so for me, I like using the different materials because the juxtaposition of different elements creates such a nice energy. It's like listening to jazz, where it's not just the same predictable, you know, monotonous saying, I like kind of throwing in different, because then it's fun for me. And I find that I do my best work when I'm coming from the same sort of a place that I did when I was making art when I was a kid.
Mhm.
I mean, I have a really good friend, Irene Hardwick Olivieri. She's a painter. And she said that as she gets older, she just spends all of her time trying to figure out how to stay true to that 8-year-old inner self of hers. And
Mhm.
and she said, you know, she just thinks about it. Like, is this the best use of my time? Like, I guess some collectors came over and they brought her a very nice bottle of wine and she didn't want to drink it and they were a little offended. And she said, well, I find that when I drink alcohol, it interferes with that 8-year-old artist self that I want to stay true to. So I find that for me, I stay truest to that one when it's playful, you
Yes.
know, and
Yes.
for some reason, I just love combining different elements. I wish people didn't see them as disturbing, but you know, at least they're having a reaction.
And that's the way that I always acknowledge that they are having a reaction, and I try to present it in a more positive light, so that they, whatever fear that was conjured up when they see it is dissipated.
Yeah.
And that might have been their first reaction. But once that you engage with the materiality of the work, also what you're trying to express, they most of the time come around and then they see it, and you know, it's all about perception, and once that someone helps them visualize in a different way, then they can come to appreciate it. And I'm sure that's this Dreamlike series is going to be fantastic. I just love what I'm seeing so far. So do you have a practice to get in tune to that 8-year-old? How do you, as you're thinking about creating, is there any kind of time you give yourself to tune in, or you're very busy with the family? So I'm just wondering, how do you go about that?
Well, I usually meditate when I first wake up. And then I usually go for a walk through the woods, even though it's dangerous because of ticks. And but I try to walk every morning for at least an hour, sometimes 2. And that kind of gets me into that zone where I feel calm and grounded. You know, it's just saved by nature, as my friend Irene says. And that really helps me a lot. And if I'm stuck with my art, sometimes it helps just to go and play. Like my husband and I went to Philadelphia. We went to Chinatown, which is about as close as you can get to traveling without really going too far. And I find that sometimes just having new experiences and eating ethnic food and doing something stimulating that can, and I carry around sketchbooks all the time. So if I get an idea, I can, you know, immediately draw it, because later I'll think, oh, I had that really good idea and now I can't remember what it is.
Yes. Always good. Well, and then as you are completing this particular series, so what does it look like moving forward for you in 2022 and 2023? Do you have any other exhibits online or up and coming?
You know, that's an interesting question. I don't. So I don't really. I'm excited about finishing this series of pieces because I have this big box of taxidermy bits that have come, and I have all these ideas, you know. And oh, there's a woman writing in right now about having a near-death experience. I love reading memoirs about people that have had a near-death experience. That's my favorite thing. And I have certain books that I carry with me and I reread them once a year. And whoever just wrote that, please feel free to write a memoir, and then I'll be one of the first people in line to buy
it. That's wonderful. Does as we're getting towards the end of our piece, I'm just wondering if there's other people in the audience that have some reaction or some questions for Christine. As you know, you can see a couple of her pieces in Imagine Museum. We've always had her work on in the galleries here since we've opened. So this is your opportunity to be able to ask questions. Are there any questions? And if you need, Anthony, you want to unmute yourself? I see ya.
Hello there.
Hi,
Hi,
Anthony.
it's good to see you.
Hi.
I just wanted to mention that recently a friend of mine put me onto the books of Michael Newman, PhD, who was a great hypnotherapist who interviewed over 7,000 patients under deep hypnotherapy about their experiences of life between incarnations, life between lives. And it starts with the book Journey of Souls, and it continues with the second volume, Destiny of Souls. And there's about 4 or 5 of these. And I just constantly think of you and your work while I'm reading these books, because I think this is the kind of thing that Christina would absolutely love. So if you haven't read them, tell me now and I'll start sending them to you, because you sent me so many wonderful books that I thoroughly enjoyed about these things.
Oh, books from Ecuador. That's crazy. I have read them and I would love someday that the minute the kids graduate from high school, I want to go to one of the people he's trained and see what comes up when I get hypnotized. Don't you think that would be fun?
I think it would be absolutely fascinating. I couldn't wait. I'd love to do this.
So let's do it together. Let's have a date.
Okay. Good to see you.
Fantastic. I
So we
saw
have a
another-
question from Catherine. What type of paint do you use? Your pieces are so translucent.
Oh, I use Winsor Newton paint, oil paint, and sometimes Gambini. I think it's called Gambini. And sometimes whatever's on sale. I don't really have an art supply store near me. There's a Michael's. So if whatever I'm out of, I'll just get whatever I can get my hands on. But oil paints, and generally I like Winsor Newton the most.
Thank you so much. We also have another question from Eileen. Where do you work? Do you have a home studio with what equipment?
I have a studio off of my living room that I share with my 7 studio assistants, who are all cats. And that's where I make the clay parts. And I have a table where I work with clay, and then I have another table where I work with the wax. And then I go up the hill and I have a big studio that was a sheep barn, but then it burned down a few years ago, and now it's a regular studio. And I have a big room for making molds, and then I have a little room for doing the oil paints, and another room for grinding the glass. So it's in central Pennsylvania, and I live out in, it's rural, so people don't get angry about the loud equipment, which is like jackhammers all the time.
Okay. Read the other questions, Natalia.
Yes, there is a comment and a question from Eileen. I love your work at the museum, but have always wondered why the faces are so expressionless or even sad. However, the faces drawn me into the work. Have you experimented with happy places or terrified faces? I guess we touched on this a little bit.
It takes me a really long time to make faces that, look normal. And I think it's kind of like a meditation. And when I've tried doing people that were smiling, they tend to look like the Chucky doll from those horror movies where they're kind of like grimacing. So I have made a few pieces smiling, but laughing just, usually the pieces kind of reflect the state that I'm in while I'm working on them. And working is kind of like a state of meditation for me. So usually the faces are sort of, I see them as contemplative or serene rather than sad. But
so are there other questions, Natalia?
Not yet. Yeah, I don't see any anymore.
So you have a busy family life with your 3 children, and as you talk about living an hour away from anything, I'm just and you meditate, you walk. So are you in the studio almost on a daily basis? Is that kind of your regiment, or
yes.
do you? Yeah.
I try to be in the studio about 4 to 6 hours a day if I can. Sometimes less. Sometimes I'll start working and my son will come in and say, I have to go to work right now, right this second. It's like, or, somebody, don't forget, so-and-so has an orthodontist appointment or an ophthalmology. And then, so I try to take my sketchbook then and then work on drawings and tell myself that I'm still working, even if I can't be in the studio.
Yes. And Robert being an artist also. So what is that like? Having you both be artists and being creative in your living area?
Well, he doesn't have a studio in the house, so he has his own man shed, which is like a converted garage. So he's there, and sometimes we do have to take turns grinding glass because I like to work completely alone with no distractions, whereas he's happy to work grinding glass right next to me with the water spraying everywhere, and that's not my favorite. So sometimes we have to kind of stagger the cold working if we both have deadlines and need to, and I'll say, well, my deadline's actually sooner, so that way,
So move on.
right.
Yes. So was there another question there, Natalia?
No, we have a comment, and actually we have few comments that everybody's very complimentary of the work and how profound it is.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
So, and since we have the founder of the museum online here, Trish, is there anything that you would like to say to Christina or a comment?
Well, of course, I love her work.
Aw.
Absolutely love her
Yes,
work. And
yes,
I'm so
yes.
grateful that you did that piece that we have in the museum of my 7 children. Thank you forever.
Yay.
Really beautiful.
Yes.
And I found it interesting that you did not, that you say, humans and animals, okay, we have souls, right? That was so interesting to me because I've studied Tibetan Buddhism, and in the monasteries, they feel like the dogs that are running around outside the monastery, and they give the dogs scraps of food because they say those are the monks that were unethical. Isn't that interesting?
Wow.
And of course, in Japanese, where I've studied in Japan, they feel that there can be spirits in rocks, in trees, and all sorts of things. It's quite fascinating. But for me, the difference between the animal and the human or Homo sapiens is the rational mind. We can tell in our culture the difference between right and wrong, good and evil.
Yeah.
We can lift ourselves above the level of the beast or the animal, which is the constant and indiscriminate eating, the constant and indiscriminate sexiness. We can lift ourselves above that. And then the third part, and this is out of a dictionary that described that word rational, the third part is an ability to contemplate things spiritual. That's what makes man different. But of course, from your viewpoint, animals may be able to think about spiritual things too. But one other thing, I love your stories. They are so fabulous and fascinating. And honestly, I love your understanding and your artistic rendition of immortality. You have an extraordinary ability to teach and educate through your art about the truth of the spiritual. For me, it lifts you way above other artists. It's honestly, it's incredible to me. And I'd love it if you'd share that quote and send that to the museum, because I think we should put that quote that you gave, I think we should put that up near one of your pieces.
Yeah,
So
I
people
think
can share that.
When I read that quote, it just it gave me such a sense of relief, like the idea that being non-physical is actually in the scheme of overall time, that being non-physical is our more natural state.
Absolutely.
And for animals, I never thought about whether they can contemplate spirituality. I just think that they have a sense of me the way we do, like, and so that is sacred, I never really thought about whether they contemplated the spiritual. I guess I always think that maybe because they're not striving and thinking about the way they look or how much money they have or whatever, that maybe they don't need to try to incorporate spirituality because they're kind of close to that more naturally than we are. We have to make an effort. My neighbors on one side fly a Confederate flag. So, it's like I see a lot of different choices around where I live, like we all have so many choices that we can make at every moment. It's really mind boggling.
It is, that's true.
Yes,
And think about trees. I don't know if you've read the most recent book on trees. Like if a tree is sick, the trees through their roots will feed the sick tree.
Oh,
So think about, the Japanese honestly feel you see a huge gnarly old tree, and that tree, it exudes something, and they
Oh.
would say it's spiritual.
Oh, I agree. I definitely hug trees. I
So do
shouldn't, I shouldn't say this if this is live, but out where we live, people like to cut down trees, and I walk through the woods and I feel that all these big giant trees are my friends. So one day I was walking through the woods and I was hugging one of my favorite trees, and I just started feeling this incredible sense of anxiety, and I couldn't understand anything about the way I was like, why would this feeling of anxiety? And I went for my walk the next day and I realized that fluorescent paint had been painted on all the big trees and they were going to be cut down, timbered for money. And I got so upset. So I did something that was a little bit illegal, and I went out with oil paints and I targeted my favorite trees and I painted out the fluorescence so it would match the bark. My kids are like, Mom, you're going to be on the cover of the paper. That's illegal and you can't do that. But, so now there's this totally denuded forest near me with like 14 giants. And it's so funny. It's like painting them rendered them invisible. So,
well, I love that. I really
Yes.
respect you for that. Honestly,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
bought 130 acres of gigantic redwood trees.
oh no.
20 minutes from the San Jose airport in California to save the trees, because right next to that is a place called Redwood Estates where they cut down most of the trees and built tons of homes. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And I go out there and I hug those trees. They're huge. You can't even put your arms around them.
Wow.
I love trees myself.
I would love to visit that someday. There's not too many major first growth trees around where I am, but I still have my favorites. Hopefully I won't get arrested for what I just said, but anyway. That's me dabbling.
We won't tell anyone. We won't tell anyone, Christine. It's all good. It's all good. Okay, so, Natalia, any other comments that you want to share?
Just people really love the work, and they like the environmentalism aspect, and they find it beautiful, and they like to come to museum to see that, and just this presentation.
So Christina, I know that you're going to be in the area in January, and I look forward to that. We'll figure out how we'll get you up here to St. Petersburg, but we'll really enjoy seeing you in person, and hopefully spend a little bit more time than this hour that we've had together. I think that if there are no other questions or comments, that what we'll do is we'll finish up with the last announcements that we have for the museum. And here we go. So we're inviting everyone to follow us on YouTube, and this Zoom will become part of the Zooms that we have on our YouTube channel. And it's just an opportunity, if you've learned from Christina today, which it's always a joy talking to her, that the other artists that we have talked to in the past and how they've shared their work with us. So if you're interested in learning more about this material and about the artists and the art that we have at Imagine Museum, follow us on YouTube. Okay, so no other comments, no other conversations. So Christina, thanks so much. I look forward to seeing you after the holidays.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a lot of fun. Great
Good.
to talk to you and Trish.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Actually, I have one question just came in from Facebook, and I need to, somebody's asking if you're teaching.
I haven't been teaching. Maybe that's something that will be more of a possibility for me when my kids are out of the house. I haven't done too much of that.
Yeah, yes. One day, you have lots to share, actually.
Thank you.
So teaching would be a wonderful thing. So when you have that opportunity. Okay, everyone. Christina, thanks again.
Thank you so much.
It's
Really
always a
lovely.
pleasure. It's always a pleasure. And we'll see you the next time.
Okay, thank you so much.
You betcha.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.